Good evening, and welcome to the North Metro Mayors Association's Legislative Candidate Forum, co-sponsored by Metro North Chamber of Commerce. Thank you for joining us tonight. My name is Matt Percy. I'm the mayor of Circle Pines, and I will be moderating this evening's forum. The North Metro Mayors Association was created in 1987 as a nonpartisan organization advocating for issues and opportunities of importance to the north suburban region of the Twin Cities. The Metro North Chamber of Commerce's mission and vision is to strengthen the business community and be the bold, innovative voice for business success. I'd like to thank the North Metro Mayors Association for coordinating and sponsoring this forum, and thank the candidates joining us tonight for making this event possible. Thank you to Circle Pines for hosting this evening, and to North Metro TV for recording and airing this forum. Our goal tonight is to give residents a chance to learn about the candidates' ideas and positions on issues important to the future of our communities and the North Metro region. We will ask 4 prepared questions with rotating response order and set time limits. We regret that we can't cover every issue of interest tonight due to time constraints. Before we begin, the candidates flipped a coin to determine speaking order. I'm pleased to introduce the candidates for Senate District 36, Heather Gustafson and Heidi Heino. Thank you both for being here. Each candidate will have 2 minutes for an opening statement. Heather Gustafson will go first, followed by Heidi Heino. So Heather, over to you.
Hi, good evening. Thank you to North Metro Mayors Association for putting this together, and to Circle Pines for hosting us tonight. My name is Heather Gustafson. I'm a Vadnais Heights mom, a White Bear Lake volunteer, and a Centennial teacher. I'm also your state senator, and it has been an honor to represent our community. I am a small town Minnesota kid who's called Minnesota home my whole life. I love this state and I love the people in it. I work with anyone who has a good idea to solve a problem in our district that our district faces. I'm one of the most bipartisan senators in the legislature, with support from teachers to the trades, healthcare groups to business owners, and I'm the only candidate in this race endorsed by the police and firefighters. That trust takes hard work and experience that's built over 4 years of showing up. I wrote the bill creating Minnesota's first ever public safety aid program, $300 million to every city, county, and tribal nation in Minnesota with local control. Here in Senate District 36, that meant over $17 million already at work. A new ambulance in White Bear Lake. Centennial Lakes Police Department was able to hire their first new officer in 20 years. I also led the fight against fraud, chief author of the bill creating Minnesota's Independent Office of Inspector General, the most significant anti-fraud measure in state history. Because people need to be held accountable, and your tax dollars should be protected and go exactly where they are supposed to go. This year, we delivered over $125 million in one-time property tax relief. We also preserved local control on zoning reform. That work with cities earned me the League of Minnesota Cities 2026 Legislator of Distinction, and I don't mention that for my own benefit, but it shows the recognition belongs just as much to the mayors and staff across our district who always kept me informed of what our community needs. There's more work ahead on affordability, housing, and keeping our community safe. I'm running again because this district deserves a senator who shows up, who listens, and delivers no matter who is in the room. Thank you so much.
All right, and then next, Heidi, you can make your opening statement.
Yes, I would like to thank the North Metro Mayors Association for hosting this forum, and I'm so thankful to be here tonight. My name's Heidi Heino, and I am not from Minnesota originally. I'm from Philadelphia, and I grew up just right outside of the city, but Minnesota became my home in 2001. I've grown to love this state. I've raised my children here. I have parented 7 children, and I have 3 granddaughters at this point. I know what it's like to be a single mom. I know what it's like to struggle and to have 3 jobs to make ends meet, and I know what it's like to bust your tail so you can get back into the workforce. I currently serve as Associate Director of Network Development at American Specialty Health Fitness. I'm the only candidate in this race that has corporate experience, that knows how to run lean and knows how to operate a budget and make sure that we're not overspending. I'm running because Minnesota is not the North Star state that it once was. I'm running because my granddaughters and my children need a more prosperous future. And Minnesota has been under DFL control far too long, and it has run the state into the ground. We need a more business-friendly state to create more opportunities for more people to come out of to gain, to come out of poverty through capitalism and live that American dream that we've all talked about. And we need more affordability measures so people can buy their first home and plant roots and build strong communities. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Now we'll move on to our prepared questions in rotating order with an optional rebuttal. Each candidate has 2 minutes to answer. After both have answered, each candidate will be offered an optional 45-second rebuttal. So question 1, we'll start with you, Heather. What are the top 1 or 2 issues you hear while campaigning? And if elected, what will you do to ensure that the 2027 legislature works in a collaborative way with the governor and the community to address those issues?
Thank you. It's a great question. I'm very proud that our team has knocked over 12,000 doors already just this cycle, and we are only getting started. So we're very in touch. I also knock doors even when I'm not on the ballot, because I don't think you should just show up at people's houses when you're looking for a vote. So I really feel as if I can answer this question in a way that has sort of touched on a few things that we've worked on and things I'm trying to get done as well. First of all, I want to point out that it is affordability, cost of living, and of course holding government accountable that probably comes up the most on the doors. One of the things I did when I was first elected was to pass the school breakfast and lunch program for every student. That right there is not just feeding our kids in school, but it is also making sure that every family, about average family, saves about $2,000 a year on groceries. I also led the way on Social Security income tax cuts, where most seniors now pay $0 in state tax on benefits. I authored a property tax relief bill, public safety bill, of course, to keep costs in check for cities, and I'm looking forward to confirming our new Inspector General this February. But looking ahead, one of the things that's really come up quite a bit is the cost of childcare and health care. Childcare costs around $25,000 a year for the average family in our district. It is unsustainable and by far some of the biggest piece of the pie of a family budget. I also believe we need more resources for community education programs, not just to keep our schools strong, but because that's a way of addressing the affordability of childcare. I'd also think that we should hold our health insurance, especially predatory health insurance companies, accountable, and big tech. I'm also really excited to create a Minnesota Entrepreneurship Task Force to make Minnesota one of the best places to start and own and run a business. I'm really proud of the work we've done. I want to continue working on some of the stuff that we've worked with as well around domestic violence prevention, sexual assault prevention, victim support, and also making sure that our kids are safe in school, including those predatory social media companies that are infiltrating at a younger and younger age. Thank you.
Thank you. And Heidi, the same question to you. What are the top 1 or 2 issues you hear while campaigning? And if elected, what will you do to ensure that the 2027 legislature works in a collaborative way with the governor and the community to address those issues?
Well, I'm out knocking doors and talking to voters. The things I hear are education, fraud, and affordability. Those are by far the top 3 that I hear at almost every door that I knock. And yes, Heather and the Senate had passed the bill, the OIG bill, which is a great first step, but it doesn't go far enough. It investigates fraud after there's suspicion. I want to bring Sarbanes-Oxley portions of that bill to governments and NGOs and nonprofits, so we know where the money is going to go before the check is cut. It stops fraud before it has a chance to start. It would be administered by the OIG office, so it is independent. On education, we need to get back to reading, writing, and arithmetic and get ideology out of schools. Kids are not prepared when they leave school to go to college. They have to go to remedial classes to be able to read and to do math. We need to make sure our schools are educating our children appropriately. We put a lot of money into our schools. It needs to get to the classroom and to the teachers who desperately need it. On affordability, we need to look at the tax burden on the state. It's in the top 5, I think, for taxes in the nation, which is insane. We're becoming like little California, and we need to go back to being that North Star state, a place where people want to come, build a business, and build a family, and plant their roots. So those would be the topics and policies I would look to institute once I'm elected.
Heather, would you like to offer a 45-second rebuttal?
Sure, thank you. I would just like to point out that there's a lot of talk about the Office of Inspector General bill and maybe not a lot of understanding about what actually is in the bill. It does detect, prevent, and root out fraud early on. Part of what their job will be is also to make legislative recommendations about how they can stop and prevent fraud from even starting. So I do think that it's, when I hear that it's a good starting point, I would push back to say that it took over 2 years of work. It earned the respect and the vote of every single Republican in both the House and the Senate, and we got it across the finish line even despite some opposition from within the executive branch. So I'm very proud of that, and I would invite people to get to know what's in that bill a little bit more.
All right, and Heidi, same over.
And I would say it's reactionary. The bill did not come through until fraud was front and center. We knew about it years ago, and nothing was done. We need somebody who's going to go in there, root out problems, and have solutions. That's what I do every day at my job, and I would bring those skills to the legislature.
All right, thank you. We'll move on to question number 2, and Heidi, this time we'll be starting with you. Our question is, what transportation infrastructure priority in your district or the broader North Metro region do you think deserves more attention at the state level, and why do you see it as important regionally?
So when I think about transportation, I think about safety, commerce, and then partnering with local governments to find out what their priorities are. In the North Metro, of course, the County Road J and 35E interchange. I live in Centerville, so there are so many times when I first moved there that I had to go down to 96 to come back up to get off the highway. And I'm so glad that that is finally going through, but we need to make a plan and follow it through in an expedient manner. Also, we need to be able to support the businesses that are in the area. Having that interchange will do that for that shopping center and the movie theater that is right there. I've seen plenty of businesses fail because they didn't have enough access. So I would say that would take precedence to build the economy in the area as well, because it is a commerce and affordability piece. We need to be able to get to and from work safely. We need emergency vehicles to be able to get to where they need to go in a safe and efficient manner. I know that the North Metro Mayors Association is looking at rail crossings and then also the 65 corridor, which is highly congested. So that would be a priority too, working with local communities and prioritizing that way.
All right, Heather, the same question to you. What transportation infrastructure priority in your district or the broader North Metro region do you think deserves more attention at the state level, and why do you see it as important regionally?
So what I hear most from residents on transportation is safety, primarily real crosswalks, safe speeds, infrastructure that keeps pace with how fast our region is growing. I think that's one of the concerns. I'm thinking specifically about the White Bear Lake Links project, where the White Bear Lake had expanded at a place where parts of their roads are now somewhat unsafe, right, to use because of the traffic that's in there. And they really desperately need the state to help them with that grant funding to make sure that we have a trail in place. It's right by a beach, and our beloved lakes, and White Bear Lake suffers because we can't get this done. So it's one of the things that was brought to our attention this summer, and we'll be working on that next year. Also, Highway 65. If you want to talk about bipartisanship, there is nothing probably more bipartisan than what happened to get Highway 65 Phase 1 accomplished. That was a lot of transportation dollars that we had to fight for. But it is such a hub in the Highway 65 area, and it was causing some real public safety concerns. I also want to mention, too, that one of the first things I did when I was elected was to give $7 million to White Bear Township. They were truthfully about to go bankrupt. They needed the money for transportation costs, which is their most expensive piece of their budget. It's really difficult to be an urban township. They are the largest township in the state of Minnesota, and with over 12,000 residents, they don't qualify for the same funding that our cities do. So it was really important to make sure that we took care of White Bear Township. And then, of course, our trails, the Rice Creek North Regional Trail is something that people, both Republicans and Democrats, have been trying to get through and finish for years and have run into some problems. I'm pleased that we were able, in a bonding bill in 23, got forward the design piece of it, and now just the funding to collect it. But for those who don't know, it's a kind of a cool trail. It starts up way up at the North Shore, goes all the way down to the Gulf. There's about 1.5 miles missing, and it's right in Circle Pines. So we need to fix that.
Heidi?
Yes, I would just add that in Centerville, we've seen a lot of growth lately. Hugo area, we have a lot more housing coming in, and we need to make sure that we keep up with maintenance on those roads. We need to look at Main Street and how much traffic is going on Main Street as well. So working with local leaders to evaluate that is going to be important in the upcoming sessions.
Yeah, I agree. I also think that we need to, the trails don't just serve the purpose of having trails that are safer roads and nice to walk on, but with all of the e-bikes and e-motos, it's become a real concern too to make sure that our kids are safe who are using those, and also people who are walking and just trying to enjoy their neighborhoods. So I do think that it is something that is relational to the public safety and the trails, and I don't want people to misuse the word trails as something that isn't structurally important for public safety too. And it all costs money, so we have to be very careful about those dollars and how we budget it out.
All right, we'll move on to question number 3. Heather, this will be your turn to start. The North Metro competes globally for businesses and workers alike. What policies would you support, whether focused on business growth, workforce and labor needs, or both, to help this region attract and retain them?
So I think about business growth in 2 ways. It's about keeping our community connected and also keeping our workforce skilled. So like I mentioned in the beginning, I'm a longtime Centennial teacher. I also taught at other school districts too, but one of the things I'm really proud of what Centennial does, and White Bear Lake has this as well, but they do have a Pathways program where kids can learn trades in school, and then that keeps them open for options once they graduate. We're very, very mindful of trades being a very lucrative and a very clear and good source of jobs after people graduate. So those are really pushed in our high schools, and I'm proud of that. It also takes money, and the state supports it with our programs. I serve on the Senate Jobs and Economic Development Committee. One of the things that I introduced last year that just didn't quite have enough time to get through the committee process was the Minnesota Entrepreneurship Task Force. I'm really excited about this because the goal is to make Minnesota the easiest, most rewarding state in the nation to start, own, and grow a business. What the task force would do would bring together entrepreneurs, small and large business owners, labor, apprenticeship programs, K through 12, higher ed, career and tech ed, and business financing experts. And the focus is really to cut licensing permit friction, improve access to capital and mentors, expand entrepreneurship, education, support apprenticeships, and address real barriers like childcare and healthcare for new business owners. I'm really proud that Minnesota ranks 5th overall for the 2026 top states for business, and it is my goal to get us even higher. So that is part of the work that I try to do with the Jobs Committee.
Heidi, the same question for you. The North Metro competes globally for businesses and workers alike. What policies would you support, whether focused on business growth, workforce and labor needs, or both, to help this region attract and retain them?
So if the North Metro wants to continue to compete globally, we need to make a climate for business to thrive. We need to not have regulations that strangle out the bottom line. We need businesses that are able to hire and retain talent. That means being able to pay them enough. So if we have regulations and unnecessary burdens on our businesses, they are not going to thrive. I work every day with businesses, large and small, and I own a small business myself. And so I know the burden that it can be working through regulations. If we want to have a good workforce, again, when it goes back to education, we need to educate our children to be able to read, write, and do arithmetic. We also, as Heather had said, we need them to be able to to go into the trades. There's a lot of room there for kids to go that way, but we also need graduates to be able to go to college right away and not have to take remedial classes. So that's another piece of it. Again, we also need affordable housing to attract, retain families, or retain that talent, and so they can raise their families in our district, in our North Metro, where they can plant roots and we can grow a community that is solid and built in this foundation of prosperity and flourishing. And so that's what I would work towards for as your next senator.
Heather?
I would just like to highlight again that we are ranking 5th overall out of all the states in the United States as a top state for businesses. In fact, we've had major corporations move from other states to start and move their headquarters here in Minnesota, which just shows that we are a thriving place for businesses to work. And they cite several different benchmarks for why that is, and civic, economic, social measures. We're also number 1 in Minnesota for quality of life, which I also think probably attracts some of these corporations. One of the biggest ones that's recently moved to Minnesota is the Taco John's Corporation. They moved from Wyoming to Minnesota. This is a big deal. It not only creates more jobs here in Minnesota, but it is a proof point that this is a place where we welcome businesses. We want to work with businesses, and we're doing pretty well. My goal with the task force is to make it an even better place to start and manage and run a business.
When I'm out door knocking, last night I was talking to a woman who's going to move her business down to Texas because they can't do the regulations that Minnesota has imposed on them. I have also talked to my friend who started a business, and they're with the new Family Leave Act. That is causing her a lot of problems with having to hire somebody that went on leave after to fill that position. So there's a lot of things that are out there that were just passed that are causing issues with our businesses. I hear that more than this is a great place to start a business. So I would push back on what Heather is saying from talking to business owners. And the NFIB has rated her 0 with supporting businesses. So I would push back on what you have said.
All right, we'll move on to our 4th and final question. Heidi, we will start with you. There is an ongoing debate about whether numerous housing and zoning decisions should be set by the state or left to local city governments. Where do you come down on that question, and why?
I believe that we need guidance from the state, but it has to be local control. Local leaders know best how they want to grow their communities, and so we would need to partner with local communities on these housing issues. That being said, we also need affordable housing for families that want to buy their first home. We need to be able to work together to create those areas where families can plant their roots and start building a more solid community. I believe we can address the housing and affordability together by working from the state to the local leaders, but local control needs to reign true.
All right, Heather, the same question for you. There is an ongoing debate about whether numerous housing and zoning decisions should be set by the state or left to local city governments. Where do you come down on that question, and why?
So I'm excited to answer this question because this is a place that I've been very consistent and very vocal. I believe in local control on housing and zoning. It's also one of the things I would point to that I've disagreed with my party on. Cities know their own housing stock, capacity, and neighborhood character far better than any committee room in St. Paul. They have their own planning commissions, their own comprehensive plans. All of my cities are different and have different needs. So Vadnais Heights has very different needs than North Oaks, and Birchwood Village is very different than Lino Lakes. One-size-fits-all zoning mandates do not account for real differences between communities, and what works in one city does not automatically work next door. The state's role should be to be a partner. So help cities pencil out housing projects they've already decided they want, cut red tape, respect local decision makers. In fact, I've had countless meetings over the last few years with city planners, council members, and mayors. I'm grateful to leaders like Mayor Rafferty, Mayor Golden, as well as city managers like Lindy Crawford in White Bear Lake, and Kevin Watson in Vadnais Heights. They have met with me on these issues consistently. They know I'm always in their corner. In fact, I'm vice chair of state local government committee, and there is a reason why a lot of these potentially harmful zoning mandates did not move forward, and that is because they were not successful in the Senate state local gov committee. And that's because of myself. I don't see these as housing bills. These are zoning control bills. I want affordable housing, but let's work with our cities to find out what they have available, what they can do, and make it suitable for the committees or for the needs that they have in their own committee. This is not a new position for me either. This is something I've consistently sat with for 4 years. I've been very vocal about it, and it's what I still believe today. We can have affordable housing. We can make housing available to people, especially people who want to live in our wonderful district, but we need to maintain the local control. So my record matches my words. It's one of the issues I'm known for, and I stand by it today.
Yeah, and I agree that local control is where it needs to end as far as the final say. We also need to look at infrastructure alongside that. So if there is going to be increase in housing, and we need to look at that zoning as well, and be able to support the influx of new people coming in. Lino Lakes has had a lot of growth in that area, and so we've seen some issues in Lino Lakes, but I agree that it has to be local control in partnership with St. Paul.
And I would just say that, again, I've been consistent vocal advocate for local control, not just on housing and zoning issues, but also on public safety. That $300 million that went to every city, county, and tribal nation of Minnesota was locally controlled by city council. So local control isn't something that I take lightly. And again, it is something that I voice quite frequently on the state and local government committee. And sometimes having to go up against my own party when I feel strongly about it. But if all 9 of my cities have a problem with something, that is a real problem for me as well. My job is to represent them, not a political party. This local control is really important on bills like this that can have a long and lasting impact on the people that live here.
All right, thank you both. This concludes our questions. We're now going to move on to our closing statements, 1 minute maximum per candidate. Heather will start, and then Heidi, you will follow after that. Go ahead, Heather.
All right. Thank you again to the North Metro Mayors Association for hosting us tonight. Thank you for all of you for being here. I want to thank my family and my friends for their constant support, the countless neighbors across the district who've welcomed me into their homes and told me what matters to them and offered their support to me. I'm especially grateful to city councils, police departments, fire departments I've had the privilege of working alongside. I appreciate all of their support as well. On public safety, funding, trails, roads, we meet consistently, and I think that shows up especially in my record. Again, I have a 70% record of bills authored that have earned the support from both parties. That's not easy to do, and a lot of people talk about bipartisanship, but when you have a record to prove it, you know that's the real deal. I think the best results come from listening first and not scoring points. I'm asking for the chance to keep showing up. No matter what, I work hard, I show up, I listen to everybody, I meet with everybody, and I want to continue that work. Thank you.
Well, I'd like to thank the North Metro Mayors Association for hosting this and having this wonderful forum. Thank you to my husband, my campaign manager, and all the supporters out there that have been supporting me along this way. I am not running for office for today's applause. I'm running for tomorrow's impact. For far too long, Minnesota has been on a downward trajectory, and so leadership needs to change. I have a very diverse background. I have a BS in soil science, I have an MS in exercise science, and I have an MBA. I am willing to come and make the necessary changes and work with efficiency at the state capitol. We need to turn Minnesota around, to renew it, to make it flourish once again. It has not been flourishing, and we need new leadership with new vision. Thank you very much.
Thank you both. This brings us to the close of tonight's forum for Senate District 36. We'd like to thank our candidates, the North Metro Mayors Association, Metro North Chamber of Commerce, the City of Circle Pines, and North Metro TV for making tonight's event possible. Please remember to vote on or before Tuesday, November 3rd. Thank you, everyone.